What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are back with Ultimate Spider-Man, where basically Peter and Harry fight Craven the Hunter. Peter stops pulling his punches, and the ending of this is crazy. So, what this does is it picks up with Peter and Harry hiding in the Savage Land. Now, keep in mind here, right, and a little bit of catch up because it's been a little while since they released the last issue of this, that the idea behind this is that it really is kind of the Illuminati behind everything. And the Illuminati here in the Ultimate Universe is very different from the main Marvel Universe, right? Where the Illuminati in the Ultimate Universe is more realistic, more grounded, and more tangible. And their true power comes in the form of information. With information, you can blackmail people, you can control people, you can have people killed, you can cheat the stock markets. Information is the real currency of the world. And so, because of that information they have, Craven the Hunter, despite the fact that he's supposed to capture Peter and Harry and hand them over to the Kingpin, kind of I would call him more of like a general or a governor for the Illuminati themselves, that Craven does what Craven always does, which is let's play a game. And he decides to hunt them instead. So keep in mind, everything you're seeing here is off the books. This is not supposed to be happening. But given the nature of the Illuminati and the knowledge they have, Craven knows that Peter Parker is Spider Man. He knows about Mary Jane Watson. He knows about Peter's kids, Richard and May. He knows about Harry Osborn. He knows about Gwen Stacy, who Harry Osborn is married to. He knows the most intimate details of their life. And that's where this kind of disagreement, I would say, not a major source of conflict, but the disagreement between Peter and Harry comes from. Because as they're making their way to the Savage Land, they're trying to get to the edge of this preserve to some kind of an escape hatch. Because remember, unlike the main Marvel universe, where the Savage Land exists in Antarctica, in the Ultimate Universe, it's down below the city of New York. So it's just a matter of getting back up to the surface again. But the big concern for Peter is protecting Mary Jane Watson and protecting his kids. The big concern for Harry is we have to deal with this guy because if we don't deal with him now, it doesn't matter where we go and it doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter what lengths that we go to protect our families. He will always come back. And again, it's kind of here in this moment, this conversation, where Harry says, like, we need to focus on right now. You need to focus on that and nothing else because we have to succeed in this before we can do anything about what's out there. And you need to come to grips with what has to happen, which is to say, we have to kill him. We have to end this guy. Now, again, that's also a fundamental difference between Harry and Peter. I wouldn't go so far as to say that Harry's trigger happy, right? He's not a Punisher character where he's just like, a guy who did a bad thing, kill him, right? That's not really what he's shooting for here. But he does understand the threat that Craven poses. And I wouldn't really call Peter naive. I would say that Peter has his own moral compass. But again, when it comes to villains in comic books, in a lot of ways, I guess, moral compass of superheroes is oftentimes their Achilles heel. If they play by the rules, then everybody else will play by the rules. But the issue with standing on the top of that ladder in that moral high ground is it's very easy for someone to kick it out from under you and for everything that you know and love to come crashing down. And that's really what Peter's going to have to contend with here. Because Peter says, don't tell me what I have to do, Harry. I know what I have to do, and I know in what order. We have to escape first, then hide our families, then you suit up, and we take care of business. But that's where Harry's like, and then what? Right, what's your grand plan after that? Right? You're thinking in the moment. You're thinking small. Like so many people out there, you're thinking about right now. You're not thinking 3 steps ahead, but everybody else around you is. And so you're going to be left behind. So the question here is, what's your plan? Is your plan to just run and hide forever? Is that it? Or are you hoping that you can beat up Craven and hand him over to the authorities? And if you do, what makes you think he's going to stay in jail? It's a very credible argument here. There are some villains out there due to just the maniacal nature of themselves or due to the connections they have that they will never, ever, ever see the inside of a prison cell. They will never stand justice for the things that they've done. And the only way to deal with them is to kill them. Now, I'm not advocating that we kill everybody out there, but Harry makes a credible argument here. And so at the end of the day, Peter just kind of pushes it aside and says, like you said, let's focus on the now. I'll worry about later if we get the chance. And so again, In the middle of them trekking, right, suddenly a shot comes out of nowhere. It kills the raptor they're riding because, yes, dinosaurs exist in the Savage Land. Harry's kind of pinned down momentarily and essentially has a broken ankle. A second shot fires off and takes out this velociraptor once again, right? And then at that point, Craven's just watching them. Now, they don't know where he is, right? They can't see this guy, but Craven is a prodigious hunter here. And he even kind of taunts him, right? He's like, now, right? Come out and play. It's no fun if you simply wait for your death. And so again, with them hiding behind the rock, Craven's firing off shots. And it's really more to taunt them. It's really more to let them know, I know where you are. There's nowhere you can run to that I can't kill you. Now, at that point, is Craven having fun? Because truth to tell, if Craven really did want to kill them, he would just wait them out. He would never fire a single shot so they would know that he can see them, that they would go taking off out of the rocks. He'd fire off 2 shots. That'd be the end of them. But Craven likes to play with his food before he eats it. And it's one of the things that makes his character so captivating, both in the main Marvel universe and here. Because at that point, Peter's like, okay, so like we have to get to the cover of the jungle because out here we're in a clearing, man. We're out in the open, right? We're literally just sitting ducks. It's not that far. Can you make it? And the response of Harry is, I can make it. And Peter's like, okay, I'll distract him. And this is one of the coolest things that goes on here, right? Because keep in mind, Peter's powers are still being discovered by Peter himself. He's still learning what he's capable of. So he jumps out there in the middle of everything, and Craven's like, I mean, who am I to deny a man what it is that he wants? So he goes firing off shots, and Peter starts dodging them, right? He's literally dodging the shots of Craven. So you guys can figure out what's going on here, even if Peter doesn't fully understand. Because once he gets back to Harry, Harry's like, dude, that was pretty dumb. And Peter's like, I think I can sense when he's about to shoot at me before he does. And what's good is what works. So let's not overthink it. His spider sense is kicking in, right? It's the first time that Peter's actually experiencing his spider sense. And to a degree, that has kind of happened over the course of the Ultimate Spider-Man run. We as the audience understood what was going on better than Peter did, but there were these moments where Peter would be in a fight and he would just kind of automatically dodge, bob and weave, different things like that. His sense would kick in, right? So again, it's a cool little way that Jonathan Hickman uses to evolve the character of Peter and to have him grow. And so in the midst of all that, Mole Man shows up. Now, here's the kicker behind this, right? Mole Man and then Mysterio, as we'll also see, because we saw him in the last issue, they're kind of enigmas here, right? Keeping in mind that Craven the Hunter is doing all this off the books and seemingly against the wishes of the Kingpin, right? Because the reality is that Kingpin and the Illuminati want Peter and Harry alive. They do not want them dead, at least as far as I remember. And so if Craven kills them, of course, he can concoct any story he wants to, right? You know, they wouldn't come along willingly and I was forced to kill them or whatever, you know, whatever the case happens to be. But Mole Man, this Savage Land area, this is his realm. Craven is conducting this hunt in Mole Man's home. And so that's why when he shows up here, he was like, so you guys are not going to make it out of here alive, right? At least not without some kind of help. You, I'm sure, believe you will make it out alive, but in all honesty, crap in one hand, wish in the other, and see which one fills up first. And so he says, fortunate for you, I am a man of means, especially in this place. And they don't initially trust him. And truth to tell, there's no reason to. One, because, I mean, the guy looks just creepy. And two, because he works with Craven. But he says, this is my domain, my refuge, my place of peace, and I do not care for this current disturbance. And where they ask, like, you're one of them, aren't you? Right? His response is, I am more of them than with them. But yes, and to a degree, it makes sense, right? Some people would argue it's better to be the devil's right hand than in his path. And so he asks, why would you betray the Kingpin to help us? And the response of Mole Man is very, very particular here because he says, oh no, I would never dare to do such a thing over such things as you. But the Kingpin knows not of Craven's excursion. So as for why I would help you, that's really none of your business. Now, in the last video that we saw, or last video that we did, when we were talking about the kind of conversations that were going on between Craven and Mole Man, it doesn't really seem like there's much in the way of love lost here. So while Mole Man doesn't really give us any specific details on why it is that he's helping Peter and Harry, you and I could probably go so far as to argue that he wouldn't mind seeing Craven killed. And that if Craven dies, well, that's the end of it, right? And honestly, it just makes his life easier. But at the end of the day, the hatch is opened and you have Spider-Man and Harry that go down into it, and they're basically led away by the Malloys. And that's where Mysterio pops up. Now, one of the best things about this, right? Like maybe it's Quentin Beck, maybe it's not, but Mysterio really lives up to his namesake in Hickman's Ultimate Spider-Man. You know nothing about his motivations, you don't know his identity, you don't even really know what his loyalties are, that he's very, very ambiguous. So it's really cool in terms of how he functions. But the conversation between himself and Mole Man is that Mole Man's just kind of like good luck, and then as he turns around, he's suddenly met by Mysterio, right? And he's like, dude, what are you doing here, man? And Mysterio's like, just observing this dangerous game that you're playing. It's surprising how delightful. And Mole Man responds, he says, I never should have told you the plan, and I certainly should not have told you that they were here. But the response of Mysterio is, but you did. And any regrets that you have, I promise, are pure folly. You did the right thing, and I will not forget it. Now, what really seems to be going on here is that of all these henchmen, if you want to call them that work for the Kingpin, Mysterio seems to be the one with the greatest sense of loyalty to the Kingpin. We don't definitively know if that's the case, and I could be entirely wrong. But in a lot of ways, it seems like the way that he's seen by Mole Man and Craven and these guys is that he's almost kind of like the man on the inside, right? He's Kingpin's eyes and ears. And it's almost kind of the way in which Mysterio carries himself, right? And so that's where Mole Man's just like, I wish you would, right? And we should also forget this insane plan of ours. The closer we get to our day of action, the more I fear it will be the end of us both. So potentially, they're both looking to take out Kingpin. But again, very cloak and dagger, smoke and mirrors, very mysterious here. But what's not mysterious is the entire conversation between the two of them is being watched by Craven. Now, seemingly Craven can't hear them, right? Because he's just so far away, but maybe he can read lips. I don't know. Who knows? The only thing that really seems to matter to him is he recognizes the hatch and he knows the hatch that Peter and Harry went down. And so at that point, you pick back up with Peter and Harry themselves. And while they're not professional hunters, they have set a kind of makeshift trap, right? At least enough to potentially offer some measure of a distraction here. But that's where things really, at least this kind of rift, seems to sort of form between the two of them. They don't go to blows, but there's a revelation that Harry gives to Peter that changes everything. Because Peter says, all right, we're close to the edge now. We could be out of here soon. And Harry responds and he's like, I still say that we should stay and fight this guy, put an end to the problem, cut it off at the source. And Peter's like, I mean, we've talked about this, man. MJ, the kids, Gwen, they're just out there unprotected with no idea what might be coming for them. And that's where Harry's just kind of like, and Peter realizes something's going on. And he says, Gwen's not in danger. Probably not anyway. And Peter's like, what in the world are you talking about? And Harry says, you heard of ransom insurance. Like if someone kidnapped me, the insurance company would make sure the kidnappers are paid off if I'm returned. It ensures that things do not get out of hand. And Peter's like, okay, what's your point? And the response of Harry is, Gwen and I had an elevated version of that, danger liability. If something happens to either of us, not only does someone try to resolve it, but the other person gets an extreme level of security. It's invisible to the person being protected, but it's effective. Otto created the protocols, and he would have activated them by now. He would have done the same for you, but you wouldn't tell him who you are. He doesn't know your identity. Now, understand something here. Peter being angry is, I guess, maybe on some level angry with Harry, but more angry with himself because this could have been something available to him. And instead, because he didn't trust Otto and because he didn't reveal his identity, despite the fact that Otto Octavius is the one that helped Peter understand the nature of his suit, he's the one that designed the kind of upgraded Green Goblin suit for Harry, that he's really been nothing more than seemingly an ally to these guys, that Peter has put himself in a situation and put his family in a situation where if something like this happened, they would be in real credible danger. And so that's where he says, so you and yours are good, but MJ and the kids are just out there all alone. But again, he's more angry at himself. Seemingly he can't bring himself to say it, right? Like I'm an idiot for turning down that kind of option. It's only ever after something like this happens that I realize the benefit to it, which to a degree makes sense, but people are reactionary. People don't really act beforehand, right? In a kind of proactive way. arguably it's one of the big failings of modern humans, but the fact is that you switch back over to Craven the Hunter, who's actually massacred all these Moloids. And when Mole Man shows back up here, there's one who's left alive. And he starts asking him, like, what in the world happened here? And this Moloid's like, Craven came. And Craven kept killing everybody until somebody told him what he wanted to know. And the question of Mole Man is, what is it that he wanted? And this Moloid tells him where the tunnels go. And so when Peter and Harry are making their way through the brush, Craven's waiting for them with a minigun, and he just like starts spraying everything down. And like Peter, again, because his spider sense kicks in, before the trigger's pulled, he's like, Harry, get down. And like immediately the shots go out, right? And so everything starts getting sprayed. But then Peter starts like skipping around, right? His spider sense is kicking in, helping him bob and weave. It's cool that he's picking up on it so fast and he's learning how to use it so quickly. But while Craven is trying to catch him, Craven's just spraying bullets all over the place. And Peter's dodging out of all of them until the gun starts clicking and Peter's like, you're out. You're out of ammo, right? And the response of Craven is, I have as many guns as there are ways to hunt my prey. Do you not see? I have hunted everything and never failed to catch them. There is nowhere you can run. So running will not save you. And that's where Peter's just like, okay, well then I guess we should stop running. Right? And so at that point, he says, Harry, do it. And Harry throws a rock, activates the trap, which explodes and sends Craven flying. Now, it's not enough to kill him. But at that point, Craven's just like, it's been some time since I've been truly tested. That was a good trap, but it was not enough. And I can tell that you have never hunted. Haven't you heard the saying, there is nothing more dangerous than a wounded animal? But the kicker here is that even Craven himself doesn't fully know what he's dealing with. He doesn't really understand the full capabilities of Peter. He does to a degree, but remember, Peter's spider sense is kicking in for really one of the very first times as far as he understands it. Craven doesn't know about it. So when Craven goes on the attack, it's almost like Goku's ultra plot armor, right? Where he just automatically dodges and bobs and weaves and doesn't have to think about it. Peter kind of does the same thing, right? His spider sense functions the way it normally does. He's able to counterattack essentially every move of Craven and then gets the upper hand on him. And he says like, this is it. Right, like we're done, and so there's this really amazing moment where Peter talking to Craven, he says, "You need to understand. There's only one way this ends." And Craven's like reaching for his gun, right? And like even when he gets his hands on it, Peter just like takes the gun from him and says, "Like you hurt us, you bled us, you learned everything you could about us, but you didn't really comprehend what you were hunting, did you?" And he like breaks the gun in half, and he's like, "Did you really think you could kill someone like me with a gun?" And he's like, you know what I understand now? I know what the line is because you crossed it. No one goes after my family. And like he literally just starts hammering on Craven like a side of beef, like almost kills him. And Harry's just like, do it, Peter, finish him. You have to. And then Peter stops. Right. And it's really awesome because at that point, Peter's just like, no, I'm not like him. We're not like him. He's going to forget everything he knows. He's going to leave our city and he's never going to return. Now, that is the Peter Parker in a fantasy land idealized perception of good guys versus bad guys. And that would work in the main Marvel universe. But the Ultimate Universe is more of a reflection of the real world. Bad guys don't just walk away because they've been defeated. And so that's where Harry's just like, what are you talking about, Peter? He's a killer. It's what he does. It's very reminiscent of like the scene from Sicario, right? Where Benicio del Toro is like, you do not belong here, Kate. You are not a wolf. And this is the land of wolves now. And it's really cool because at that point, while Harry's pleading his case, Craven pulls a gun and he's like, Harry's like, he won't stop until he wins. It's him or it's us. And Craven pulls the trigger. Now the bullet flies right through Peter, right? Literally hits Peter. And Peter's like, I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel any danger. Like, why didn't I feel anything? And the response of Craven is, because I wasn't aiming at you. You were just in the way. And he shot Harry in the face, shot him in the head, kills Harry Osborn on the spot. And he's like, you should have listened to your friend because he was right. I will never stop. The hunt never ends. And Peter totally loses control. I mean, just completely loses control here and absolutely starts pummeling Craven. And he would have killed him if Mysterio hadn't popped up. And this is why I say Mysterio is so cool, man. Mysterio is so fascinating here because he shows up really more with a warning than anything else, but he makes Peter think in a way that Peter hadn't been thinking before. And I'm not talking about in this like moment of rage. I mean, the entire time he's been here, because Mysterio says, this is quite the dilemma, isn't it? He's like, normally we would be enemies as our allegiances demanded. But in this moment, that is not the case because I am more interested in him than you, hero, for I have plans. But should he die, should you choose to continue beating him to death, then his end would mean my full attention would turn onto you. So I have to ask, is that really what you want? And the response of Peter is like, he killed my friend. And the response of Mysterio is amazing here. He says, and like your friend said, he's a killer. And that's what killers do. So you have to wonder, if he is so good at it, what makes you think your loved ones are safe? How do you know he has not already sent someone to visit them? Honestly, what makes you even think they're still alive at all? And so that's where Peter's like, what do you know? And the response of Mysterio is, me personally, I have no real idea. But I do think that you should run home now, Peter Parker. You couldn't save your friend, but perhaps you can still save your family. It's amazing because when Peter gets back home, of course, MJ's safe. Right now, also keep in mind the backup story that had kind of been a part of this is that his son was running around in the Venom suit, which is essentially what Peter Parker's suit is, right? It's technically Picotech, but it's a Venom suit by all standard of measurement. And like MJ's fine, right? Like he just busts in, like literally knocks in the door. MJ's just like, what in the world is going on? She's like, oh my God, Peter, thank God. Because he's been missing for months. He's been gone for months. And in fact, in the time when it appeared that he was there, it was actually the Venom symbiote pretending to be him, essentially shape-shifting, which was Jonathan Hickman establishing to us that the Venom symbiote can change its physical form to look like anybody. It was a really cool revelation that came from the Ultimate Spider-Man line. But she's just like, where have you been? Like, because she realized that it was Venom and it wasn't actually Peter. And so at that point, it's like, where's my husband? Where in the world did Peter go? But once she realizes he's bleeding, she's like, what happened? And he just says like, Harry's gone. And she's like, what? She's like, Harry's dead. And I couldn't save him. I mean, tears are rolling down his face. I mean, it's a very emotional moment. And she was like, why would someone like, Peter, what happened? And it's like, they know. They know who we are. They know our identities. They know you. They know the kids. They know everything about us. Like they literally know everything. And so she's like, you're scaring me. Like, I'm scared. And he's like, I know, I'm sorry. It's just, I'm so sorry about all of this. And she's like, well, then what do we do? Like, what are we going to do here? And Peter does the only thing that he can think of. He's just like, we run. With that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. I told you, man, Ultimate Spider-Man, this comic is amazing. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and I will catch you all later. Peace.